Verstappen is not refusing Red Bull because he wants more money. He is refusing because he does not trust the future. And that is the nightmare Laurent Mekies cannot control. Red Bull wants a new commitment beyond 2028. Verstappen says there is no reason to rush. But behind that calm answer is a brutal warning. He hates the new cars. He has questioned whether Formula One still feels like Formula One. And Red Bull is no longer giving him a car that can fight at the front. He is 7th in the championship, more than 100 points behind Antonelli. Red Bull is 4th in the Constructors' Championship. And now, before their home race in Austria, Mekies has explained why the most important driver in Red Bull history will not give them the answer they desperately need. Because Verstappen is not asking for promises. He is asking for proof. Proof the car can win again. Proof the regulations will not ruin the racing he loves. Proof Red Bull's new era is not already falling apart. And until he sees that proof, he does not need to threaten Red Bull. His refusal already has. Subscribe to the channel. Red Bull should not be begging Max Verstappen to believe in them. That is what makes this whole situation feel so uncomfortable. Because this is not just any driver. This is not a young talent waiting for his first big contract. This is not someone trying to create drama for a few extra headlines. This is Max Verstappen, the driver Red Bull built an empire around. The driver who turned their car into a weapon. The driver who made entire seasons feel like they were already decided before Sunday even began. And now, before the Austrian Grand Prix, Red Bull is facing the one question it never wanted to face. What if Max no longer believes the future belongs to them? That is the real crisis for Laurent Mekies. Because Verstappen already has a contract through 2028. On the surface, Red Bull can pretend there is no emergency. They can say the deal is secure. They can say the timeline is long. They can say there is no rush, no panic, no drama. But Formula One does not work only on sign paper. It works on belief. And belief is what Red Bull is losing. Verstappen refusing to discuss a new deal beyond 2028 is not just a calendar decision. It is not just patience. It is not just a driver saying, let's wait and see. It is a signal, a warning, a way of telling Red Bull, I am not ready to give you my future until you prove you still deserve it. That is brutal because Red Bull used to be the proof. The team was the fastest proof in the world. The car was the proof. The wins were the proof. The titles were the proof. Verstappen never needed to ask whether Red Bull could give him a championship future because every weekend answered the question for him. Now the answer is not clear, and Verstappen does not sign unclear futures. That is why Mekies is in such a difficult position. He did not inherit a calm dynasty. He inherited a team trying to survive the end of one era and the beginning of another. Christian Horner is gone. Adrian Newey is gone. The old Honda partnership is gone. The new Red Bull Powertrains 4 project is still trying to prove itself. The car is not the front. The championship is already slipping far away. And the driver at the center of everything is watching. Not emotionally, not sentimentally, coldly. Verstappen is measuring the evidence. And the evidence before Austria is ugly. He is 7th in the championship. Red Bull is 4th in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes is leading. Ferrari has momentum. McLaren is ahead. Kimi Antonelli is more than 100 points clear of him. For a driver who spent years treating victory as the minimum acceptable standard, that is not a bad phase. That is humiliation. And Verstappen is not a driver built to decorate humiliation with optimism. If the car is not good enough, he says it. If the regulations feel wrong, he says it. If the direction of the sport frustrates him, he says it. That honesty is one of the reasons Red Bull benefited from him for so long. He forced standards. He demanded precision. He made excuses impossible. Now that same honesty is aimed back at Red Bull. That is what makes it painful. Because Mekies can give calm answers in press conferences. He can say there is zero concern. He can say Verstappen is still working with the same intensity. He can say the relationship with the team remains strong. He can say Max is precise in feedback, committed in debriefs, and still chasing performance. And that may all be true, but it does not solve the bigger problem. A driver can work hard and still refuse to commit. A driver can give perfect feedback and still question the future. A driver can race every lap with aggression and still decide that the team has not earned another contract. That is the danger. Verstappen is not disengaged. He is unconvinced. There is a huge difference. If he were disengaged, Red Bull would know the relationship was broken. But unconvinced is more dangerous because it leaves a team trapped in uncertainty. Every race becomes an argument. Every upgrade becomes evidence. Every bad session becomes another reason not to sign. Every good session becomes only temporary relief. That is the cycle Mekies has to break. And Austria is a brutal place to try. The Red Bull Ring should be Red Bull's emotional fortress. Their home race, their circuit, their colors, their crowd, their identity. This should be the weekend where the team projects strength, where Verstappen feels the energy of the place that once looked like his kingdom, where the noise reminds everyone of what Red Bull used to be. But now, that home advantage becomes pressure, because if Red Bull looks weak in its own race, the questions become louder. If Verstappen sounds frustrated, the questions become louder. If Mekies has to keep denying concern, the questions become louder. If the car cannot fight Mercedes, Ferrari, or McLaren, the questions become louder. And every question leads back to the same place. Why would Verstappen sign? That is what Red Bull has not answered yet. Not with words, with performance. Because Verstappen's refusal is not about loyalty in the simple sense. He has been loyal to Red Bull for years. He has won with them, fought for them, built history with them. But Verstappen's loyalty has always been connected to competitiveness. He wants to win. He wants a car that can fight. He wants a sport that still feels worth mastering. And right now, two things are failing him at once. Red Bull is not competitive enough, and the new Formula One cars are not enjoyable enough. That second part may be even more dangerous, because a bad Red Bull can be fixed by Red Bull. A bad regulation direction cannot be fixed by Mekies alone. Verstappen has been clear about his dislike of the 2026 cars. He has said they're not a lot of fun. He has said the feeling is not very Formula One-like. He has compared the driving experience to Formula E on steroids. He has criticized the constant management and the direction of the racing. That is not a small complaint from a frustrated driver after a bad session. That is a driver questioning the soul of the category. And when Max Verstappen questions whether Formula One still feels like Formula One, Red Bull has a problem bigger than lap time. Because even if Mekies improves the car, even if the RB22 finds performance, even if Red Bull climbs back toward the podium, Verstappen may still look at the future and ask whether he wants to keep racing under rules he dislikes. That is why he will not rush. Why would he? He has the contract security. He has the trophies. He has the status. He has already proven himself. He does not need to sign early to feel safe. Red Bull needs a signature more than Verstappen needs to give it. That power imbalance is new. For years, Red Bull held the strongest hand because it had the dominant car. Verstappen wanted to win, and Red Bull gave him winning machinery. The relationship was simple because the performance made it simple. Now the performance is gone. So the relationship becomes complicated. That is where Mekies looks desperate, even when he speaks calmly. Desperation in Formula One does not always sound like panic. Sometimes it sounds like repeated reassurance. A team principal saying there is no concern again and again. A team explaining that the driver is still committed again and again. A garage insisting the relationship is strong, while the paddock keeps asking why the future is not secure. The repetition becomes a clue. Stable teams do not have to prove they are stable every weekend. Secure drivers do not need constant public defense. A future that feels obvious does not become a main topic at a home Grand Prix. But this is Red Bull's reality before Austria. And the deeper Verstappen waits, the more pressure builds. Because every delay gives rivals hope. Mercedes will watch. Ferrari will watch. McLaren will watch. Even if Verstappen says he may leave Formula One entirely after 2028, every top team will still ask the same question behind closed doors. What if he changes his mind? What if Red Bull stays fourth? What if the Ford project does not recover quickly enough? What if the FIA adjusts the rules in a way that brings him back emotionally? What if GP Lambiase leaves? What if Verstappen wants one more chapter somewhere else? Those questions destabilize Red Bull even if nothing happens immediately. That is the power of uncertainty. It weakens a team before the contract actually changes. Engineers wonder about the future. Rivals use the speculation. Media intensifies every quote. Sponsors ask questions. The driver market becomes restless. And Mekies has to keep the focus on performance, while everyone wants to talk about commitment. That is why Verstappen does not need to threaten Red Bull publicly. He only needs to not sign. That absence becomes a story. And the reason he is not signing is clear. Red Bull has not given him proof. Not proof of speed. Not proof of direction. Not proof that the new power unit project will be strong enough. Not proof that the team can replace what it has lost. Not proof that Formula One will move away from the car philosophy he hates. Until that proof arrives, Verstappen keeps control. He can say the contract already runs to 2028. He can say there is no rush. He can stay calm. He can avoid dramatic statements. But the message underneath is devastating. Show me why I should stay. That message lands hardest on Mekies, because he is the man in the middle of everything. He has to convince Verstappen, reassure the media, lead the rebuild, protect the team, manage expectations, and somehow make Red Bull look like a future powerhouse again while the present results say something else. That is almost impossible, especially because Verstappen's standards are not normal for another driver. Finishing fourth in Barcelona might be acceptable during a rebuild. For Verstappen, fourth in a car that cannot fight for the podium is not progress. It is evidence that Red Bull is not where it should be. Seventh in the standings is not a temporary inconvenience. It is a statement of decline. Max does not measure Red Bull against ordinary teams. He measures Red Bull against a Red Bull that gave him domination. And that comparison is brutal. The old Red Bull was sharp, stable, and terrifying. The new Red Bull is rebuilding, uncertain and exposed. The old Red Bull had Newey's genius. The new Red Bull has to prove its technical direction without him. The old Red Bull had Honda's strength. The new Red Bull has a Ford partnership still finding its feet. The old Red Bull had Horner's established authority. The new Red Bull has Mekies trying to build trust under fire. The old Red Bull made Verstappen feel inevitable. The new Red Bull is asking him to be patient. That is the problem. Verstappen is not naturally built for patience without proof. He can endure difficulty if he believes the direction is right. He can work through problems if he sees the path. He can stay intense during a rebuild if the team gives him evidence that the pain has purpose. But if the pain feels like decline, he will not pretend. That is why Austria matters so much. It is not going to decide his entire future in one race. But it can add evidence to the file Verstappen is building in his mind. Is the car improving? Is Mekies leading effectively? Is the power unit developing? Can Red Bull still respond under pressure? Does the team feel like a winner in transition, or a former champion try to remember how it used to dominate?